Venezianico is an Italian watch brand, and in today's video we will do a review of one of their diver models called Nereide. I will point out all the positives and the negatives as I find them. Now let's begin by talking about the case. The diameter is 42 millimeters. It's about 49 millimeters from one lug to another. The thickness is almost 14 millimeters, 13.8 to be exact, and the watch has a 22 millimeter lug opening. The watch and the bracelet are both made out of 316L stainless steel. It features an all satin finish with some high polish accents on the lugs, on the underside of the case, and of course this high polished middle link on the bracelet. I appreciate those high polish highlights on the underside of the case because they make the case appear slimmer. Overall, the finishes on the case are executed well. The shape of the case is very traditional diver watch-like. There are a couple of crown guards on the side of the case protecting this crown that's located at the 3 o'clock position. It is a signed crown with their logo, and it is a screw down crown helping with 200 meters of water resistance. We find a flat piece of sapphire crystal on the front of the case with some AR coating. As far as the case back goes, there are some odd choices made here. So at a first glance, this looks like a traditional screw down case back. However, if you look closely, you'll see that it's actually held in place using screws. And according to one of the founders, they chose to use screws instead of a traditional case back because the screws in this case didn't really affect the water resistance rating. This watch still comes with 200 meters of WR, but because they chose to use screws, they could have the case back always facing the right direction. By the way, the engraving is of a submarine, after which this model is named. I think it's a very odd choice going the extra mile to engineer the case back and the screws not to compromise water resistance, just to have the case back facing the right direction. And I think if you were to poll watch enthusiasts, 9 out of 10 would prefer a traditional screw down case back over using screws, even if according to the company it doesn't really compromise the water resistance rating. This model comes with a 120 click unidirectional bezel. What I like about this bezel are twofold. I love how easy it is to grip. There's plenty of clearance for your fingers. It has the sort of coin edge finish on the sides. I also love how satisfying these clicks are. This is a very enjoyable bezel to operate. The bezel insert is ceramic, and I like that they added a little bit of color to the loom pip, and that blued color on the triangle of course matches the writing on the dial. Speaking of the dial, I think this dial is the star of the show here. It's made out of enamel and it really looks sharp. You have to really see enamel dials in person to appreciate how beautiful they look. Over videos and photos, the beauty of enamel dials doesn't really translate well. I love this effect that they created with the floating indexes because they are sort of on a different level. They almost look like they're floating over the rest of the dial. They're kind of attached to the outer chapter ring. I also like the finish on these indexes. It's a very clean, high polish finish. The set of hands matches the overall simplicity of this design. We can see a couple of sword hands, applied logo closer to the 12 o'clock position. We also see a date window at the 3 o'clock position with a little border around. I think the overall integration of this date window is pretty good. It doesn't really throw off the symmetry of the dial. And then closer to the 6 o'clock position, we have a couple of words there. The name of this model, as I said before, in this baby blue to kind of match the triangle on the bezel, as well as Ceramica, I guess ceramic because it has a ceramic bezel insert also written there. Kind of strange that it doesn't really have water resistance written on the dial. 99.9% of diver watches would have their water resistance rating placed in that exact spot. The indexes and the set of hands are of course loomed. They feature a BGW Super Luminova, and the application is nice and even. Here's a loom shot for your reference. This watch comes with your choice of either a stainless steel bracelet or a rubber strap. First, let's talk about this bracelet. It's an H-link bracelet construction made out of stainless steel, all satin finish except for the high polish finish on the center links as well as the clasp. The way this bracelet is designed and the way it's finished, it kind of gives you that Nautilus-esque design aesthetic. This bracelet is probably my least favorite part about the watch, But before we get into that, let's first talk about a couple of positives. First, I like how this watch looks on the bracelet. I think the bracelet looks good with this design. Secondly, I think the finishes on the bracelet are competently done. Now let's talk about some of the things that I don't really like about this bracelet. I personally am not a big fan of butterfly clasps on any watches, especially on diver watches, because they don't have any micro adjustments. On a dress watch, I guess it could be fine, but on a sports watch, on a diver watch, you really want to have micro adjustments, as your wrist might expand and swell up depending on the weather conditions. I actually did ask them why they chose to put a butterfly clasp on this watch, and according to them, this watch is meant to be more of a dressier diver as opposed to more traditional tooly diver, so they wanted to give it a more dressier aesthetic. I guess that's fair enough, to each their own, but I personally would have preferred this watch at least having a proper scissor clasp with some micro adjustments and maybe even a diver extension. The second thing that I'm not so crazy about with this bracelet is the fact that it has push style pins for resizing. I think a watch in this price category, almost $800, would probably benefit from some screw-in-place pins. And lastly, this is not really a negative, it's not really a requirement for a watch to have this, but I think it would have been nice to have a quick release system. I think more and more micro brands are moving towards having quick release systems on their watches. It just makes taking off a watch bracelet and swapping it for a rubber strap much easier. In fact, this watch comes with the rubber strap, so why not make it much easier to swap between the two? I think you have to add these little value propositions to make your watches more attractive. Speaking of the rubber strap, I think the rubber strap is good. I think the rubber strap is the way to go. First of all, you will save yourself $85, and secondly, I think the watch just becomes a lot more comfortable and a lot more in its own element on the rubber strap. It comes with simple hardware, but it gets the job done. I much prefer this watch on the rubber strap over its bracelet. On my 7.5 inches wrist, I think the watch fits well, but it is on the larger side, especially if you wear this watch on a bracelet. As you can see, the bracelet kind of protrudes out just because of its design. So if you have a bit of a smaller wrist, I think it will be an uncomfortable fit. It would just look awkward on your wrist. 42mm diameter is reasonable for a diver watch, but I think it's reasonable for a tool diver watch. As the company stated, they're kind of targeting this more towards a dressier diver, and I wonder if it would actually benefit from a smaller case, maybe 39-40mm, since it's a bit smaller and would have a wider appeal. Generally speaking, in my mind, 42mm diameter watches are reserved for more serious type divers. I like how the watch looks on a stainless steel bracelet, but I think the rubber strap is the way to go in terms of the comfort on the wrist. It's more comfortable and definitely more functional. This model is powered by the Sellita SW200 Swiss-made automatic movement. It's a hacking and hand-winding movement. It has 26 joules, beats at 28,800 vibrations per hour, and roughly has about 38 hours of power reserve. It's a great solid movement, very accurate, easy to service, and it's exactly the type of movement you would expect within the watch in this price category. I'm sort of two minds on this watch. On one side, I like how it looks. I think the design and the look of it is the strongest aspect of this watch. The watch itself, quality-wise, is pretty good, but it does have some odd choices that kind of hold it back in my mind. I wish it just came with the traditional style screw-down case back, but the bigger negative, quote-unquote, to me is this bracelet. I wish they went with a traditional scissor clasp. Maybe some micro adjustments, diver extension would definitely improve this watch greatly. Lastly, I would probably shrink down this watch slightly, make it around 40mm in diameter. I think that would be much more popular with a lot of watch enthusiasts. And as far as the price goes, 780 euro on the stainless steel bracelet, I think is a little bit too expensive. Probably drop down that price by about 100 euro, and on a rubber strap for around 710 euro. Once again, it's a little steep, but hey, those were just my thoughts and my opinions on the watch. Leave your thoughts in a comment section below. Let me know what you think. I always enjoy reading your comments. Thanks for watching this video all the way until the end. Give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and we'll see you next time. Bye.